Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. So I'm going to start this Q&A with a question that is not from any particular person, because I've received these questions numerous amounts of time. We've talked numerous times about polishing your watches. We've talked numerous times about cleaning your watches. We talked about servicing your watches. But a question that often comes up is, how do you clean a watch when you're at home by yourself without having to go have it polished and serviced properly, etc.? But because a watch got dirty, right? And oftentimes, I'm sure you've heard me answer the question, oftentimes I'll just use soap and water. I'll use a light toothbrush and even some toothpaste and stuff to make the watch shine a little bit better. But for the most part, you can take care of your watch with just washing it, literally washing it. So I get an email from a gentleman by the name of Christopher from a company called Perpetual Detail. And I told you guys that I've been getting a lot of stuff from you, right? You guys are sending me things. And I've said it numerous times, I don't accept sponsorships. I'm not looking to find sponsors for my channel. I sponsor my own channel. I don't need any sponsors. But what I did say is that if there's a great story behind a product, I'll be more than happy to throw it on my channel as sort of part of my mail time. Pretty soon, I think this may get a bit overwhelming. I may do a whole separate episode called Mail Time, like a lot of other YouTubers do. But for now, I'm going to try to stick this stuff in where I see fit. So Chris reached out to me and says, listen, he came up with a cleaning product, a home cleaning product for your watches, right? So I said, okay, that sounds great. But to ensure that this is some sort of a plug or a cheap attempt to get your product out there, I said, why don't you tell me your story? And I'm going to read you the story. And this very story is the reason why I decided to put Chris's product onto my channel. As a car and watch lover my entire life, in 2010, when I was 23 years old, my father surprised me with my first luxury watch, a Breitling cockpit with a white dial on a pilot bracelet. I was blown away and loved wearing the watch. At the time, I was selling cars and making okay money, and I loved wearing the watch all the time. As a meticulous person, I could never figure out how to keep it clean, as I wanted, so I would wash it with soap and water all the time. Through many struggles over the following 6 years, I put away the watch and decided to stop wearing it. I was broke, I lost a couple of jobs, I was mentally not in a great place. I didn't feel right to have a watch like the Breitling on my wrist anymore. So in 2016, I started a new journey, selling cars once again, this time for BMW. Right from the start, I rose up, became one of the top salespeople, motivated and hungry to succeed. After year one, I reached my set goals and treated myself to my first achievement watch, a brand new Rolex Datejust 2 black stick dial with a fluted bezel. Still, I wanted to keep the watch clean, but there weren't anything for sale that would allow this to happen quickly and on a fly every day when I put on my timepieces. I hated seeing fingerprints, smudges, and spots all over the watch after wearing it every day. That is when I decided to make a product that can allow me to keep my Rolex clean every day without taking more than a few seconds to do the job. That is when I started developing the Detailer, a quick detail spray along with a custom-made washcloth that would not scratch your timepiece. I also created the cleanser along with this, which is a wash soap that is gentle and requires no brushing to clean your timepiece. I put these products to the test starting in 2018 and launched my own company, Perpetual Detail, in 2019. I wanted to share this with watch lovers everywhere, encourage people to take care of their watches, keep them like new without having to sacrifice too much time to do so. I bundled this kit that includes both products and offer for sale on my website. Both products are mixed, packaged, and made here in the United States. Cars and watches are my passion, and having both in my life as a way to take care of my family makes me feel very accomplished and happy. By the way, I'm back to wearing my Breitling, and I'm including a picture of my current watch collection. So there's the Breitling, there's a Hulk, there's the Datejust 2, which was the first watch, and there's a Frank Mueller Vanguard. Very nice collection. So I haven't opened this yet, right? So this thing is still sealed. Perpetual Detail, made in the USA, love that. Let's see what comes in this thing. A very nice cloth. And notice what I'm doing with this cloth. I'm trying to sort of tear it apart, because oftentimes a lot of these cloths that we have, even like the ones we have made for Luxury Bazaar, threads tend to come off of it. This feels really nice and feels really soft. Here you have Perpetual Detailer, and this is the cleanser. Make sure the crown is tight, rinse watch under lukewarm water, dab cleanser over entire watch using fingers, gently massage cleanser throughout, covering all the areas inside and out. Rinse the watch throughout and pat dry using the included cloth. Detailer, place the watch on the wrist, fold included cloth in half twice into a small square. Sprayed corner cloth 8 to 10 times with detailer, run cloth over bracelet case, and I guess that will get rid of the fingerprints. Hold on, let's try that. Wow, it actually works pretty well. I'm not giving you guys a close-up, but my Sky Dweller is shiny, and it gets rid of the smudges. Rolex especially, guys, you know, or any watch out there that has sort of the high polished center links or high polished bracelets. This works like a charm, and it's really a simple idea. I mean, really, it's just soap and water and a nice cloth to do this with, but it's packaged together in a nice package, which you can take this box, throw it in your car, do whatever you want with it. Definitely a nice product, and I'd certainly love the story behind it. Oftentimes, people lose things and they have to sell off their watch, right? And that serves as a constant reminder. But here, you had a fancy watch that you could wear, but yet, by putting it away, you sort of work towards being in a position financially to sort of deserve to wear that watch. Very interesting twist on things. But it looks like your watch collection, I can certainly tell that you are indeed back on your feet and you're extremely motivated. And to come out with a product such as this, the cleaning kit is $40, $39.97. Not bad. You didn't exaggerate on this being some sort of a special formula. You flat out say that this is more or less soap and water, but it's conveniently packaged. It's got a really cool cloth. One of the suggestions I will make is that you should probably sell additional cloths separately, because after a while this cloth will get worn out, I'm assuming. Again, I don't know what the exact quality of the cloth is. I would certainly give the ability to buy maybe the cloth separately, but overall great product, guys. Show this guy some love. Check him out, perpetualdetail.com. I think it's a great product. I think it's a great story. Certainly has a lot to do with a world of horology. And to you, Chris, my advice to be look into social media marketing heavy duty. This is one of those products that if it shows up on the feed of somebody who's a watch nut or a watch collector and somebody who's very meticulous about their watches, this is certainly a product that one would pick up. And relative to the cost of our watches, $40 doesn't seem like such a big deal. Again, thank you for sending me the kit. Well, this is Q&A Tuesday, not Mail Time Tuesday, so let's get into some questions. I'm going to take one from a gentleman named Adam. Roman, once again, your videos are so informative. Keep them coming. Thank you. Question number 1, can you get a good deal out of a pawn shop? I've come across some deals, but hesitant to pull the trigger on a watch $5K and up. Yes, you absolutely can get a good deal out of a pawn shop. So the way pawn shops normally work, because somebody will come in, they'll pawn something, be it a watch, a Dremel tool, or a PlayStation, right? Then they go and make payments depending on the state. It's how much they are able to charge. Some pawn shops are able to rip you a new one based on their state laws, but that's not the point of this conversation.
Burnt my fingers, man.
So let's say I'm gonna try to base it on a real example. So I am a guy that went in and pawned a $10,000 watch. The people that are lending money out on these items, because that's what they're doing. When you pawn something, they lend you money, and whatever you pawn is your collateral, right? So whoever is lending money out, they know the value of that watch. I know that watch is worth on the open market $10,000. Let's say on a wholesale level, it's worth $8,000. They're going to lend you probably based on $5,000 to $6,000, leaving themselves that 20 to 30% cushion in case you don't come back and pay your interest. So let's say you defaulted on your payments based on the paperwork you provided and the laws of the state, blah, 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 blah. Let's say the watch is done, right? You haven't come back to get your watch. Now the pawn shop owner owns that watch. They own that $5,000 watch at $10,000, right? With that said, you've also made payments on this watch. So let's say you've paid $1,000 throughout this whole ordeal of $500. That also kind of comes off the cost of the watch, but it really doesn't, because again, pawn shops have operating costs, one to include the money that they'll lend out that they'll most likely borrow from a bank, right? So let's not take that in consideration. Let's just take in consideration the fact that now the pawn shop owns a watch that's worth $10,000 retail, let's say $8,000 wholesale, $4,000 or $5,000. And here you come in as a customer to try to buy a watch. And pawn shops are like any other store, right? They have certain stock that's been there for a while. They have certain stock that's harder to sell because the trends may have changed. And oftentimes they just might want to get off stock. You don't know what their particular situation is, because pawn shops make most of their money not on the stuff that they have in a pawn shop, but on the money they have out on the street, as they call it, right? So the more money you have out on the street, the more money you make. And the reason being is because this is their business. Their business is to lend money, and the percentages are outrageous in pawn shops when it comes, because these are all very short-term loans usually, right? Secured by watches, among other things. So you happen to come in and you happen to see a watch that, you say, listen, normally this is an $8,000 to $10,000 watch. And the guy may say, you know what, I'm tired of this watch. I'm going to come off it for $7,000. Because remember, they all have internet. They all know what these things are worth. A lot of dealers that I do business with on a wholesale level that I buy and sell from to are indeed pawn shop owners, right? And so they know the value of these things. But like any other business, my business included, There are times that you can get better than usual deals. Last week, we ended up selling a couple of Hulks for like $11,000. Granted, they were pre-owned with no box, no papers, but we left at least $1,000 on the table. Why did that happen? I happen to have gotten 7 of them in. Right? And overall, my costs were less and something happened, blah, 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 blah. We listed it a little too cheap on eBay. Somebody clicked buy it now twice. One watch cost a lot less, watch cost a lot more. Didn't make a whole lot on the entire deal, but bottom line is things like this happen for various reasons. And pawn shops is the same thing. You never know when you walk into a pawn shop what kind of deal to expect. Sometimes you can overpay, sometimes you can underpay. And the fact that you're specifically asking about pawn shops, it's really relevant to pretty much any business. Right time, right place, right? That $10,000 watch, this guy may be very well willing to sell you this watch at $7,000. He may not care to go through the hassle of going to wholesale it to somebody, listing it on the internet, or he may already have a bunch of this type of watch in stock. So it's very, very situational. So to answer your question, yes, you can get a good deal out of a pawn shop, but it's just the same as you can get a good deal out of a website, out of a regular store. It's all situation based. Hope that helps. The number 2 question, with the tragic death of Kobe Bryant, have you seen a surge on the Nubia Black Mamba Hublot watches? Thanks in advance. I was taken back by the death of Kobe Bryant, and I wasn't one of those individuals that just went ape and started crying over someone that I never personally knew. A basketball legend in its own right. Of course, not to downplay how great of a person Kobe Bryant was, not to mention the fact that he's a guy that played in the local high school, right? He was great as a basketball player, he was great as an individual, he was great as a philanthropist, he was great as a father, he was great in many, many, many things. But this episode is not about Kobe Bryant. And again, I just didn't want to downplay the man himself and how big a tragedy this was to the world of basketball, but obviously mostly to his family, right? I did not look into the prices of Kobe Bryant's Hublots. And the reason for that is because I felt it was unethical. I told you guys numerous times, we have these dealer chats. I did see somebody post a Kobe Bryant Hublot on there at some ridiculous price, because let's face it, just because it was a Kobe Bryant Hublot spits limited editions out every 15 minutes, so that doesn't really carry a whole lot. Yes, it was a popular model, but it was still a model you can get at a discount. And I think I saw this guy post this thing like 10 grand over list. The minute he did that, probably 50 WhatsApp, so 50 messages, basically, in not so many nice words, were saying shame on you to jump on that bandwagon. Same thing happened in the sneaker world. You see a lot of kids jump on a bandwagon and try to buy up as many Kobe sneakers as possible, and prices did go up online. My son, who sells sneakers on the side, I told you guys the story before, he didn't buy a single pair because he shared my opinion, and not because of what I said, because of how he felt himself, that it would be unethical. So, to tell you the truth, do I know, have the prices surged and not surged in a Hublot watch? I don't know, because I don't even look into that, because I feel that it's very, very unethical to benefit from a tragic death of a person such as Kobe Bryant, or anybody else for that matter. Now, had this been an older watchmaker that's been around for a long time that happened to die at a very old age of natural causes, and then the value of watches go up, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Same goes for art, right? We both know that the art goes up in value once the artist dies, unfortunately, right? But this was a tragic event. This was a life lost much, much sooner than it should have been lost, of a very, very popular individual, a role model for many, again, in many worlds outside of basketball, just the same, a husband and a father. So I wouldn't touch, if I had a Kobe Bryant watch in stock, I would probably sold it for all the money in the world and charge a stupid premium for it just the same, but with one tiny difference, because underlying that description would say that all proceeds would go to either a charity of Kobe's choice, his family's choice, etc. That would be my way of doing it. And again, whoever is out there, actually, let's for the sake of argument, I haven't looked at this. Let's go to Chrono 24. Let's see what's out there. And I honestly haven't looked. Obviously, some guys don't feel the same way that I do about these things. Here you have a guy from Turkey that's selling the Black Mamba for $125,000. Somebody else is selling one for $250,000 out of the U.S. $250, $115. Oh, there's somebody up here for $365,000 from the U.S. Wow, let's see. Can we tell who that is? No, it doesn't tell you on Chrono 20. This dealer is in New York. Honestly, that's just a shame. I wish I didn't look, honestly. But anyway, you got my thoughts on the topic. Hope that shine a little bit of light into your question. Next question comes from Fred Zamorano. You guys remember there was a YouTube channel I plugged, Shaluso, same guy, and it came up with a really good question, so I'm going to answer his question one more time. Thanks for responding to my question in your last Q&A. For the shout out on my channel, you're welcome. My next question comes from your AP Royal Oak Offshore End of Days video. You mentioned in the video that at one point just one person was buying up as many of End of Days as possible in order to then control the price on the resale. Is this something that could still work? Is it economically and practically feasible? How much time can it take for an effort like this to pay off? And what are the risks that it won't? Is it something that you've done before? And if so, has it worked for you? I know it's a lot of questions, but if there's any insight, much appreciated. As always, thanks for making such a great videos. I'm looking forward to hearing an answer. So the End of Days that was worn in the movie End of Days by Schwarzenegger, it's a piece unique, made specifically for that movie. Little update for you, that watch sold literally 2 hours after my video came out. I guess the power of social media, that really works. And if the gentleman that bought this watch is watching, a shout out to you. I think you picked up a hell of a watch. I'm actually low-key jealous. I actually originally thought about keeping the watch for myself, but again, this is still a business, and we're in the business of selling watches, not keeping watches, right? So let's talk about buying up as much as possible to control the price on the resale. Absolutely, you can do this, right? However, it's very difficult to do with regular production watches. It's much easier to do with the production watches of which they only made 1,000 or 500 or 100. Very easy to do it with limited editions, but you really, really, really have to be careful. Why? Because as you start buying up these watches, you create your own demand, right? You can start doing it quietly. You have to do it very, very quietly. You have to quietly start buying up all these models. But quietly doesn't work in our business. It's a very small world. So let's take End of Days for an example. This is a watch that was trading under $10,000 when they first came out. A, you would have to have the vision right off the bat to say, A, 10 years from now, this thing is going to be $30-some thousand. B, you have to have the pockets to buy them all up and the time to sit on those watches. So is it a good business model financially? No, because it takes a lot of time. It requires a large investment up front. If this is something you're doing as a side thing, then sure, for sure. Buy it, put it away, forget about it. For a business like mine, it doesn't really make sense, because if you do the calculation over time, if I would have bought up 500 of these 15 years ago, right? Let's say $10,000 a piece. That would be a $5 million investment. That was 15 years ago. Let's say today, for a regular one, they're $30,000. There would be $30,000. I would be asking $40,000 brand new, or even $50,000 brand new. Yeah, it seems like I'm tripling my money, but let me tell you something. If somebody gave me $5 million 15 years ago, I would make a lot more than $10 million over 15 years. So financially, it doesn't make sense, unless, again, it's a side thing that somebody is doing. But you will control the resale. But just to go back to what I was saying, it would be impossible to pay every single one of them for 10,000. Reason being is because the minute after piece 10 or 15, this is such a small world, people will get the whiff of things. Number one, A, other people will be buying and following suit, and this is what happens today, all day, every day. And B, it would be very hard for me to buy piece number 500 or piece number even 200 at the same $10,000, because just by me buying it all up, the prices would inadvertently go up. This is what happened to that gentleman in Chicago that I talked about. You know, he bought his first one at like $40,000, his last one at $65,000. See what I mean? Because he created his own hype. Practically, it is feasible. This can be done. Economically, doesn't make sense. Financially, I'm assuming that's what you're asking. How much time can it take to pay off? Nobody knows. There's a right time for everything, right? And I'll give you an example. When I bought A and P serial Daytonas back in the day, right? When they were still trading around $10,000, right? I knew, based on my experience, that look, this is the last set of Daytona, right? This is gonna be the next collectible, right? But it was a lot easier to buy them up in 2000 and 2001, right? Or 2003, because they were much, much cheaper. There was still plenty on the market. People weren't putting them away yet, right? When I put about 8 pieces away, and when I pulled out 4 of them and I sold the A's for $30,000 a piece and the P's for $50,000 a piece, oh my God, Roman, why didn't you put away 100 of them? Again, it's time over money, right? A, if I would have started buying up 100 of them at a time, the prices would have went up automatically, because it's like the stock market, but it's not. In the stock market, big players can make big moves. You know, if Warren Buffett goes out there and spends $10 billion in the market in an hour, it will shift the market, right? But in watch world, it's a much smaller scale. So even a smaller guy like me, which makes up a small piece of this whole big pie, starts making this type of move, because the world is so small, it would have an impact just the same, even though I'm not spending $1 billion. So how much time can it take to pay off? The answer is too long to justify the financial investment. But there are pluses to that. To become the first and foremost authority in something, which is what I did back in the day when I was selling limited edition offshores. This is something that I did, starting with the titanium Montoya, and everybody and their mother came to me for limited edition offshores. But guess what? That market kind of died down. Right now we're on the Royal Oak hype, right? The whole limited edition hype died down. Imagine if I was still holding 500 pieces from 10, 15 years ago, where would I be today? I'd probably be somewhat screwed because, again, once the popularity go down, it doesn't matter what's out there, what's not, right? Plus, out of sight, out of mind. If I would have bought up all the limited editions and there was no trading involved throughout that time, those pieces wouldn't be worth much more because there would not be any data backing that up or any trading backing that up. So at the end of the day, yes, that can still work theoretically. It is practically feasible, but it's not financially feasible. Hope that sheds a little bit of light into that question. The next question comes from Andrew from the land down under. Greetings from Northern Australia. First, I just wanted to say how much I enjoy the content you put up each and every week. Big shout out to Ian. Thank you. I've been a viewer of your channel and subscriber since Q&A segment was in the low teens, and your 2 videos a week are always something I look forward to when I sit down for my coffee in the morning. I have a question for Q&A Tuesday regarding depreciation. I've been contemplating my next major purchase, and as I am on a limited budget, my watch buying exists sub $10,000 spaced at this point. I always buy pre-owned in an effort to dodge as much of the initial depreciation as I can. This often allows me to pick up something that I would not normally be able to justify for it if purchasing it new. I'm not someone who expects their watches to hold their appreciated values. Amen. But as I try to limit expanding my collection to 1 piece a year, if I drop $7K in a pre-owned watch today, I try to take only a smaller loss if I trade out of it. My question to you is, how do you determine when a watch has suffered the bulk of its depreciation in the pre-owned market? Do you work on the idea of a certain percentage based on brand model? I know you often pick up new models for 40% off retail and below, but was hoping you could offer some guidance for consumer buying pre-owned through a dealer or a private sale. I know there's no hard fast rule on this, as the market is always in flux, but when I see a Zenith or Panorama, for example, that retail for 15K, selling pre-owned for 8K, surely the pre-owned value of this watch is fairly stable at that point. Keep up the great work and congratulations on the ever-expanding growth of your channel. Best regards, Andrew. I'm going to give you a good one here, Andrew. First and foremost, let me make some comments. I try to watch some YouTube videos of YouTubers that I follow in the morning with my morning coffee. It doesn't work. At least with my 3 kids and my wife, it never happens. So once in a blue moon, I can probably swing that. But let's talk about the fact that you said, listen, I buy pre-owned enough to dodge as much of the initial depreciation as I can. Good move. I've told you guys in the past, if you don't mind going pre-owned, you are dodging a lot of depreciation right off the bat. But don't let that be a guidance to you. Oftentimes, I've seen guys get out there, buy a pre-owned watch thinking they got a smoking deal, and I tell them, well, you just paid $7 grand for this pre-owned watch. I could have delivered you a new one for $7,200 or $7,300, something really, really small, like a 5% difference, right? Keep that in mind just the same. How do I know when a watch has suffered the bulk of its depreciation in the pre-owned market? You know what the great thing about your questions, there's a hidden answer within your questions. Oftentimes you guys ask me questions, the answer is right there in the question, but this is a very hidden answer. I'm going to read this comment. I know there's no hard or fast rule on this, as the market is always in flux, but when I see a Zenith or Panorama, for example, that retail for 15, selling for 8, surely the pre-owned value of the watch is fairly stable at this point. Wrong. And this is the statement that should give you that very, very hint. Whenever you see a watch selling pre-owned that's 50% or less of its original value, those are the ones that are going to depreciate the worst. Why? Because there's a reason that something is selling at half off or more than half off pre-owned out on the market. And the reason being is that the watch is not as popular, therefore in our terminology, dealer terminology, it's not a sellable, it's a dog, right? That's what we like to call those pieces. Opposite of that, you see a watch that retails for $20,000, sells brand new for, let's say, $18,000 and pre-owned for $16,000. That is the watch that you want to go after because you know that's a very popular watch, right? And you see that even on a pre-owned end, the savings are not as significant. This is also a watch which you should use your rule where you try to dodge that initial appreciation. So if the watch sells for 18 brand new and pre-owned for 16 and you plan on trading it out in a year, that's the watch you go for. That's where you use the rule of thumb of buying pre-owned and dodging that particular bullet, right? There's no number in which a watch will depreciate. In fact, a lot of pre-owned pieces appreciate in cases like Rolex. It's a timing thing. Imagine buying a particular Rolex that retail, let's say, that you bought for, let's say, $25,000. Right? Based on its retail, let's say you got 20% off some big gold Rolex. a year goes by, you're going to lose a little bit. What you're going to lose is not the depreciation. What you're going to lose is when you go to resell the watch back to a dealer. Odds are, if you sell that Rolex to a private customer and figure out a way to sell to other private customers, whether it's through Chrono 24 or on some boards or something like that, fine. Then you shouldn't technically lose any money. But if you are going to sell to a dealer, there's always going to be that 10 to 20% loss, because we in turn do, and I've talked about this before as well, we got to take the watch and we got to make money on it. Most likely we're going to have to polish it, put some work in it, add a little bit of money. We have operating costs, so therefore we need to buy this watch cheaper in order to make a profit. But let's say a couple of years go by, 3, 4, 5 years go by, and that watch has gone up in retail 3, 4 times. Now, based on the retail, the price that you pay for it is actually going to allow you to make money. Let's say 3, 4, 5 more years go by. Now this watch got old, right? There's newer models, it's old news, and the watch itself is much older. People don't want to buy a watch that's 15 years old or 10 years old, right? Now the value goes back down. So it's about sort of finding that perfect timing where you don't lose, maybe even gain a little bit, or perhaps not lose an acceptable amount of money when selling your watch. But do understand the following: the bigger the discount on something is, the bigger the dog it is. And that doesn't mean it's a dog to you. You take advantage of that, right? That means you're buying that watch much, much cheaper than you normally would at a much bigger discount. You'll buy a Zenith and at a much bigger discount today than you will, let's say, a used Rolex, right? But just keep that in mind. When you go to resell it and you come back to a guy like me as a dealer, I'm going to say, well, wait a minute. This thing is retails for $15,000. This guy paid $8,000. I probably ended up making $1,000 on that when I sold it. It took me 6 months to sell it. I don't think I want to buy it back for $7,000. I think I'm going to try to buy it back for $4,000 or $5,000, and therefore you're going to take a bigger hit. The bigger discount initially, the bigger hit when you go to resell it. Unless something magical happens, like trends change, something becomes super rare, super popular, et cetera, but that usually does not happen with brands that are less popular than those that are runners today, such as Rolex, Audemars Piguet, Patek, and things of that nature. Hope that sheds a little bit of light, and I did give you somewhat of a formula. Enjoy your morning coffee. I'm sure you're watching this during breakfast, and thanks for reaching out. Another good value question from Baxter. Good evening. A question for Q&A Tuesday. If I may be as bold, well, this is what this is about. It's about you guys asking questions, so all of you go right ahead. So no worries there. With the prevalence of micro brands, how does the gray market establish a value? As with most things, some will offer a quality product at a reasonable price. Others will be overpriced junk. Unlike the established brands, where the market has found a level for a specific brand or model, a lot of newer micro brands do not have a track record to draw on. There is no value on micro brands, okay? And I'm going to just assume that by micro brands, you're talking about certain fashion watches and the likes of the MV, MT. Notice I never speak bad of them because I take my hat off to them, the marketing that they have done, and the fact that they were able to take cheaply made but cool looking watches and turn it into something that the Movada Group decided to buy. Take my hat off to them all day. Bravo, guys. But there is no value on those brands, and I'll tell you why. There's really no secondary market on those micro brands, right? Majority of the micro brands that you see out there, some of the cheaper watches out there, they're all over the place, online, brand spanking new. We sell a lot of micro brands, right? A lot of it goes to Amazon. A lot of the stuff is on our website. We send a ton of them. Not lower end, I say cheaper watches, right? But there's really no resale value on those watches. Where could a resale value be on a watch that you buy for $100? So let's say a watch retails, let's take an example. Shameless plug for my website. You know, guys, I normally don't do this, but it's just easier because I happen to know what I'm looking for. Let's go to fashion watches. Let's pick, I don't know. Here's a good one, Nixon. Very popular micro brand or fashion brand, whatever you want to call it, right? It's a well-made watch. It's owned by a great company. Nixon is owned by Adidas. So here's a Nixon Diplomat watch. Reference number 8277-1421. 45 millimeter stainless steel case that's presented on a matching stainless steel bracelet. This model offers water resistance of 200 meters. The watch is powered by a quartz movement and features the following functions: hours, minutes, seconds, GMT, and date. Retail price, $550. Our price, $89.95, 84% savings. How can a watch like this have resale value, right? As you can imagine, this is not a watch that we make 10 to 15% on, right? This is a watch we make a much bigger margin on, and we have to because it's cheap. I'm selling it for $90. Am I entitled to make at least $30 after processing and receiving and having to buy 5,000 of them at a time, et cetera, et cetera? Absolutely. So let's say, I don't remember what my cost is off the top of my head, but let's assume my cost is $60 on this watch. I'm making 30%. Great. A little more, actually, right? You pay me $90. You wear it for a while, you get tired of it, and you go to sell it back in. This is not that a watch I'm going to take back in on trade. Even for $10 or $20, that watch no longer has a value. When a dollar amount goes down to a certain amount of money on a watch, be it a microbrand, a fashion watch, label it however you want it, it loses its value in entirety. So when going out there and buying yourself a watch in the realm of that particular price range, keep that in mind, that most of the time there is no secondary value, there is no secondary market. Now, I know a very, very, very few guys, and when I say very few, I can probably count on one hand, they sell off these less known micro brands and they dwell in that world of pre-owned micro brands of fashion watches, so it's lower and lower price goods. And I actually can tell you from experience, I was at a Hong Kong show, there's a gentleman there that sells these off brands that most people haven't heard about or known about. And I somehow, in a big store buyout, ended up getting a bucket of fashion watches, right? I had to put a cost on them, so each watch ended up costing me like $200 to $300, right? Anywhere from $100 to $300, right? And that bucket probably had, I don't know, 30, 40 pieces, right? That bucket was irrelevant to the deal that I made, right? Like I could have thrown those watches out and they would have been particularly fine, but I said, listen, these are nice, these are decent working watches, why I'm gonna throw out? I'm gonna take them to trade shows and somebody will buy them. I literally put them in a bucket that said final sale, and I think I marked them all at $300 to $400, right? Per watch, just pick whatever you want. This gentleman comes over, he's like, can I see that bucket? And I knew what he does, I knew this is what he works with, and I said, okay, sure. Here's a bucket, take a look. He offered me anywhere from $20 to $50 a watch, right? That's the kind of value that I got. And those were a bit nicer than Nixon watches. I don't remember what the brands were. Some were pretty known brands actually, but I don't remember what they were. So to answer your question, it's irrelevant whether a brand has a track record or not. If it's a cheaper brand, if it's selling for cheap money, odds are it won't have any resale value, no matter how you slice it or dice it. Here's a very good one from Joe C. from London. Hey Roman, keep up the good work. Thank you. I was amazed to find out that 2 of the Holy Trinity of Vacheron and Patek only offer 2-year warranties rather than 5. Further to this, I find incredible that JLC offers 8 years. Why do such fine, high-quality craftsmanship pieces from Patek Philippe and BC offer such short periods? Why do they not have the confidence to offer at least 5 years like AP? These are very expensive timepieces. It's important to have confidence that the piece is built well enough not to encounter problems within 5 years. Can you explain the reason for this? I'm going to be flat honest with you guys. I don't know the answer to that question, but I can give an opinion as usual. When I don't know something for a fact, I'd rather not make up a story, right? I probably could, but I won't. The only answer to you is there's 2 ways of looking at it. JLC offers 8-year warranty. Huge confidence in their product, right? Vacheron Patek only offer a 2-year warranty. Could also be looked at as huge confidence in their product, because they may be out there saying that, oh, wait a minute, giving a 2-year warranty is sort of like just a standard, so we're going to throw it out there, but we really don't care because our watches are not going to break within 2 years, 5 years, or 8 years, right? But for the most part, let's look at it from a different perspective. Let's look at it from a marketing perspective. JLC given an 8-year warranty, could that be a marketing stunt? Where Patek and Vacheron Constantin doesn't feel like they need to do that. They have other market employees, right? You don't just own a Patek Philippe, you merely hold on to it for the next generation, right? Majority of all these watches will not break within the warranty period anyway, right? So Patek Philippe, maybe they're big badasses and they don't feel like they need to throw out a 5, 6, 10, 11-year warranty or whatever it is, where JLC, they're not as popular as Patek Philippe or Vacheron for that matter, right? So they feel like they need to do something a little extra to entice the buyer. So they give you an 8-year warranty. But at the end of the day, what does that really do for the quality of your watch? Absolutely nothing, right? Yes, from a marketing perspective, your confidence is going to be high when you hear somebody like AP give you 5 years or JLC 8 years versus Patek Philippe's 2-year warranty period, right? Patek Philippe buyers are going to be Patek Philippe buyers whether the Patek Philippe puts a 2-year warranty on it, a 5-year warranty on it, or an 8-year warranty. Patek Philippe doesn't have a whole lot to prove to the Patek Philippe buyers. They know what they're buying. They know the value that they're buying. And, you know, to them, it's maybe unnecessary to do so. And that's kind of how I look at it. Yes, I agree with you that, you know, these very expensive timepieces, it's important to have the confidence that the piece is built well enough to encounter problems within 5 years. And yes, of course, from a marketing perspective, a 5-year warranty will give you that confidence boost. When you're talking about companies that are so old and have proved everything and anything that they had to prove, majority of the time it isn't going to matter to a consumer. So it's just a different way to look at things. That's really it. And that's the best I can do on this one, Joe. Hope that kind of helps. I'm going to take one more before I get out of here from Marcus, a gentleman whose questions I've answered before. and a long-time viewer of mine. Hey Roman, haven't asked any questions on this channel in a long time, but something made me curious. In the last few days, we've seen several shoplifting during the rise that took place on the BLM protests. Without going into the merit of whether the protests are valid or not, or any political issue, the facts are that there have been several thefts, especially some stores of major watch brands and jewelers. My question is, what dealers like yourself and normal buyers like us can do to avoid buying these stolen timepieces? Thank you. Nothing. That's it. Good night, guys. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday. No, but here's the thing. The original person that stole that watch from a boutique, this is not a person you're going to find him slapping on Chrono 24 or eBay or anything for that matter. He would just be a complete idiot to do so, right? They're probably either going to wear the watch, enjoy it, and say, oh, I got myself a Rolex, or they're going to try to fence it for cash somewhere to another shady character that deals with that type of stuff, right? Today's day and age, it's extremely difficult to fence a watch like this unless you're selling it to some other private individual that knows he's buying a stolen watch but paying a third of the price. Why? Because any pawn shop, any store, anywhere you go in right now and you try to sell a watch, everybody is very, very aware of the fact of stolen watches.
Man, that watch is so hot, it's smoking.
Hot? Do you mean to imply stolen?
I'll give you $50 for it.
There was an incident in Europe where an armored truck that was leaving a watch show was robbed, and a lot of watches came out. A lot of dealers kind of put things on pause, right? A bunch of lists went out among all the dealers of what was stolen. So these pieces, every time they would come up, nobody would buy them. In fact, they would report to people that would try to sell them. So again, very small world. But in a case like this, if somebody comes to my office tomorrow and says, hey, I got a Rolex, he brings in a brand new spanking Rolex that has no box, no papers, says, I'd like to get cash for it, red light right away, right? Sorry, I'm not interested. Thank you for your offer. If I do end up buying that particular watch, I'm going to find out who this person is, and I'm going to make him fill out a piece of paper. I'm going to make sure he has a real piece of ID. I'm going to ask him where he bought the watch from originally, right? Oh, I got it from the store. I no longer want it, blah, blah. Well, you know what? Let me call that store and find out who you are and if you really actually bought it from that store, right? Anybody that stole that watch right there and then would probably run out of my office and say, you know what, never mind, I'm just gonna go, right? And odds are I'd probably hold on to that watch and say, you know what, let me hold on to this for a minute because I have a shady feeling about this, and maybe we should call the authorities and see where this watch really came from. I'm not afraid to do so, right? So that's how we avoid it, common sense. If something is too good to be true, it usually is. If somebody's offering you a watch and it has a wrist attached to that watch, odds are it's probably a stolen watch, right? Or if somebody's offering a brand spanking new watch, but he doesn't have the box and papers, the individual himself doesn't seem like to know what he's talking about. I can easily find out if you're a watch guy or not, right? If somebody brings me a stolen GMT and I feel something is shady, I'll throw something like this at him. He's like, oh yeah, how do you like the Rolex Submariner? It's really nice, isn't it? And odds are that person has no clue what he's talking about, and he's going to say, oh, I love the Submariner. It's my favorite watch. Meanwhile, it's a GMT. Again, stupid example, but something in those lines. For somebody that knows watches, it's very easy to figure out the other guy doesn't know watches, right? But by simply throwing some conversation out there in regards to watches and seeing the reaction and see how knowledgeable that person is. So common sense will make you avoid this. Will some of these pieces eventually trickle out on the market? Absolutely. But guess what? The way you protect yourself is by buying from someone reputable, right? I've had stolen watches come through my company, right? Where I bought it from one dealer, he bought it from another dealer, he bought it from another dealer, and eventually as time goes by, if somebody puts 20 stolen Rolexes in the safe today and sells them 5 years from now, nobody's going to question that, right? And somehow they'll trickle out into the market. But at the end of the day, I buy from reputable sources that I know that I can always go back to that source and say, look, you sold me this watch 4 years ago. I sold it to a client. He took it in for service. It ended up being stolen. No problem. Here's your money back, right? But if you're going to start buying stuff off the street or some shady guy with a coat, right, odds are you're going to end up getting screwed at the end. And so really, to answer your question, it's really just common sense. Yes, some of these watches will make out there. A couple of deals may get burned because what happens is the dealer that didn't do the due diligence in the very beginning, that bought that watch from somebody that's shady, sold it on to another one, to another one, to another one, shit rolls downhill. The minute this watch gets identified as stolen, it will roll downhill to that very first dealer that has nowhere else to go to get his money back, and he's pretty much going to be stuck out of the money that he paid. So I hope that somewhat answers your question, Marcus. Guys, I appreciate it for you sticking around. As always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're not subscribed to my channel, share my video. This is what helps my channel grow organically. I ask you guys this at the end of every video. It really does work. As always, new questions, Roman Sharp at luxurybazaar.com, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday.